I was out in Dubai recently, okay, and I don't know if you've ever been to Dubai. It's a sort of strange place, very sort of manufactured. I mean, that's just my opinion. But you have these amazingly huge shopping malls, amazingly huge supermarkets, not surprisingly, I suppose. And, you know, it's mostly desert, okay? And so far as I'm aware, and I'm happy to be corrected, you know, there's very little in terms of, you know, produce growing or grown on the land, okay? So what occurred to me, because I was talking to my girlfriend about this, and she was saying about, you know, would you like to live in Dubai? What struck me is that, you know, places like that, you know, you're going to be people are so dependent on, you know, shops, supermarkets, so on. They have no self-sufficiency at all. Now, obviously, that's not an extreme example, but it is an example which, you know, in this country one would like to think. But that's the real danger, you see. So your point about the farmer is exactly the same. You know, we make ourselves reliant on the farmers, right? There's always that element that if something goes wrong, like they put too many chemicals in the land, right? Like, you know, they have an argument over their subsidies, I mean, exaggerating, you know, they can effectively not only affect our lives, but potentially hold us to ransom. I know that they won't, you know. So this, to me, seems to be why we do need to be self-sufficient up to a point. Now, I'm not saying necessarily, I don't know, I haven't thought it through, you know, that every person in the world has to have a hectare of land, an acre of land, and some will get, you know, more fertile land than others, maybe, of course. You know, I don't know. But the point is that you create, then you get away from this dependency.
Well, I think that's...
And it's the dependency which creates the scarcity, you see.
Yeah, I mean, dependency...
and that's real scarcity.
Is interesting. And actually, there's a very interesting initiative here in mid Wales, because they've figured out, you know, obviously we are not self-sufficient in food. You know, we are dependent on other parts of the world. And we have this attitude in Europe that we've got money. We'll always be okay. You know, it'll be other countries like in Africa or where else that'll starve. But we'll all be okay because we'll always be able to buy the oil, we'll always be able to buy the food, we'll be okay. And that's a pretty dreadful...
Yeah, of course.
You know, in one sense it's a nasty kind of frame of mind. And it's also probably illusory because there will be a day when we won't be the richest buyers or purchasers in the marketplace, and someone else is going to be willing to spend more to buy the oil and the food than we will. So we're going for a mighty shock. So here in Wales, they're actually kind of almost going back to the dig for victory. They're actually telling all the communities, look at all the plots of land. Stop planting flowers around your village. Plant vegetables instead. You know, and that's a really nice thing. You know, look at all the allotments. Look at, you know, the kind of empty spaces. You know, think production. We want to reduce the miles that your vegetables are travelling before they come to the table, and I think that's a really good initiative. It's not going quite as far as your Marxist vision, you know, agrarian utopia, but it's at least a small start, you know, and I hope they actually achieve something, you know. But as I was saying to you earlier today that, you know, I got some apples, and I was thinking, this apple has cost me 60 pence. That's more than a Mars bar. How is it possible that something which is just plucked from a tree down the road is costing me more than a Mars bar, which involves plucking of fruits thousands of miles away, you know, mashing them up into cocoa paste or whatever, you know, into chocolate, and, you know, mixing with other things, wrapping it up, spending billions on advertising, and it's still cheaper than an apple. And as you said, you know, what is mass produced? But I believe that apples are mass produced.
Well, this is something else.
For every tree.
This is something else that Anastasia talks about. I mean, it is scandalous, really. But again, I mean, it's like creating this. I mean, you know, we live in a world of choice, that's for sure, and you know, no one would want to deny anyone the choice of buying their apples from South America or South Africa rather than from Worcester or Kent. But having said that, you know, she makes one point which I think is very strong, and that is that generally speaking, fruits are meant to be eaten pretty soon off the tree, right? Because they lose their energy. I mean, this is not something, again, that any advertiser or supermarket will tell you. But you can see it very often in the fruit that we buy, you know, on the shelves. But worse than that, you know, think of the process that apple has been through. Let's say it's an apple from New Zealand. You know, it's been picked from the tree and then it's been stored probably in boxes or crates, whatever, locally on the farm. At some point later, maybe 3 or 4 days, I'm guessing, and I may be wrong, you know, it's been loaded onto a truck to be transported to probably another warehouse or place waiting for distribution. And then maybe it's gone on a plane, and that plane has come to London via God knows where, you know, etc. We're probably already talking a week, you know, maybe more, from the time that apple's left the tree until it's actually got to, you know, Heathrow Airport, let's say. And then it's unloaded, and then it's sent to another distribution centre, let's say at Milton Keynes, right? And then, you know, it's bought or whatever it is, or taken to a market, maybe taken by a certain supermarket, again, stored by that supermarket, because the supermarkets, they don't want to put all their apples on the shelves at the same time, right? So, you know, again, another process, another few days, eventually it finds itself on the shelf at Waitrose or Sainsbury's, and then we buy it. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe later, that apple.
Well,
okay?
Yeah.
Now, I'm guessing. Now, obviously, if it's from Worcester or Kent or somewhere, then in theory, it ought to be a lot quicker. Although I always remember a very funny story when I was, if I say funny, it's slightly, you know, it is in point. I was with some friends on a wonderful Greek island called Alonissos, okay? And we watched in amazement as all these fishing boats came in, and they had huge catches and everything, and they were loading their fish into the crates on the quay, and oh wow, fantastic. And we went to the local restaurant. We said, well, we must have some fresh fish tonight. We see the fish out there, and we asked for some fresh fish, and they said, oh, you know, what again? We saw the boats coming in. I said, oh no, all that goes to Athens. It all goes to Athens, right, as part of their system. And then it comes back to us 2-3 weeks later. So in other words, it goes to Athens, they buy it from Athens, and I mean, come on. You know, and that, I mean, okay, that may be a one-off story, but, you know, that's what happens.
Yeah.
But you see, again, but when we're self-sufficient, when we have our own apple trees, when we have our own vegetables in the garden, you know, all of that disappears. So of course you don't need to pay 60 pence for your apple. But that 60 pence is made up of all that paraphernalia in getting from the tree to the supermarket, and you know, people take it for granted. They assume it's just been picked and it goes on the supermarket shelf.
I know, but I still think it's scandalous.
It's scandalous.
Something straight that comes off a tree down the road, it costs more than something which is manufactured.